So you can talk about fans as young as 6 months old have to look out for foul balls. And if one of them were to get whacked, I mean, that's game over right there. So
Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming back to another recording of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm Jordan Skop. I'm here with Brianna Ludwig. We're entering the middle of June right now, baseball season 2026. It's very exciting to bring on our guest host in a few minutes. But before we introduce our guest host for the day, I usually like to give a little recap on how Foul Ball Safety Now started, which started back in 2019, seeing disturbing news on morning TV of a little child getting smashed. I mean, hit hard by a line drive that sent shockwaves through anyone seeing that. And at that time, I was fortunately in a position to network and make some noise amongst people that I know that I want to make some sustaining noise and make some conversation that we need to address this issue. Why is this still happening in 2019? Even fast forward, why could this still be happening in 2026? So from that moment on, I found a lawyer through a connection of mine, another lawyer, and he introduced me to a guy by the name of Brendan. And Brendan's been with me now for 7 years. We're now 7th season together at Foul Ball Safety Now, documenting a pile of history that nobody knows about. And we're so excited to eventually present that in book form, potentially in documentary form. What we've been doing is we've been interviewing not only the victims, people that have been affected by this forever, including somebody who got hit at the Dodger game. His wife got hit at the Dodger game and died a few days later, Erwin Goldblum. He's been part of 7 of our virtual press conference experiences. Also, other people that have been affected, 2 people we've interviewed who've been blinded in one eye. One, my lawyer's friend from teenager years. She was 14 years old at the time. And Lynn, another lawyer, said, "You can meet my girlfriend who was blinded when she was a teenager," and she was very generous sharing her story with us. Also, Rick, blinded at a Cardinals game in 2016. We met with Rick and Laura. So Brendan and I are chronicling all these stories that nobody knows about. We're even speaking to baseball players who are telling us their stories. Comes out like ghosts and skeletons in their closet, but at least it's very revealing and telling because they're opening up to us. Brendan and I probably reached out to 300 or 400 baseball guys, pile of email addresses, and 10% of these guys got back to us and said, "Yeah, we'll talk to you." And what they did, and a lot of these guys played double A, triple A. Some had Major League Baseball experience, mostly past players, but they gave us formal interviews and they told us things like their parents were told where to park the car, their parents were told where to sit inside the ballpark, which is a problem in many of these smaller places. And now college is on our radar based on from a year ago, a little over a year ago, when a student athlete contacted me, Jordan, we're worried." "What are you worried about?" "We're worried our balls are going over the sides. There's an elementary school right next door." You should be. I'd be concerned too. You'll see at Foul Ball Safety Now, the tab where it says Queens College NCAA investigation. We wrote Queens College. We now copy NCAA on the letters that we sent on letters 4 and 5, I think we did. And we even got a Queens College student reporter to pay attention to the issue. And he even got a quote from the athletic director. So he showed a lot of courage and initiative. But it's not just Queens College. All of these baseball fields are compromised throughout college and professional baseball. I got a call last year from a lawyer in Modesto, California. "Hey, Jordan, what's up? Our client was hit outside the ballpark, hit in the head, can't work anymore." Why are these professional ballparks, Modesto in 2023 happened to have been an affiliate of the Seattle Mariners worth billions of dollars, paying the salaries of the Modesto club? Why are they allowing one or many balls to hit the pavement or the car window or the lady in the head? And it even happened to me in Brooklyn more than 20 years ago. Not me personally, but a group of people we were with that day, young and old. This young person we were with, boom, right in the forearm. Like, where did that come from? It's not once a year where the balls are hitting the sidewalks or the car windows or potentially the human beings. It's all the time, one or many balls in 3 or 4 hours. And we did a Google Earth on college, just D1, 2, and 3, 46 fields, and we learned that they seem to all be connecting to neighboring fields or parking lots. A place called White House, Tennessee. Believe it or not, there's a place called White House, Tennessee. I'm putting them on the map because I've mentioned them before. A parent called me up and said, "Hey, Jordan, we can't have soccer and baseball at the same time. Can you help us?" I'm like, "I'm glad you guys are discussing it." And I do believe there are solutions in every zip code, and there's architects, engineers, and designers on every level that have not been dedicated to this and addressing inside and out. People like Brianna should know, who have young children, where to park the car, no strings, no conditions attached, where to go into the game. It's never been told in advance that near miss missiles are regular and direct hits are possible and they're probable, and it happens every week or two. Who knows how often? But we've been speaking to people just this year. There's been a few incidences. Brianna's finding self-reported incidents from 2025 from last year, 45 incidences just at the major league level. Balls are still making their way over the nets. We need to have an accountable explanation and no more unknown factors. And we believe that the fan base still hasn't woken up to this issue, partly because MLB and people like me have not been as effective as we could be in communicating the message. And that's what Foul Ball Safety Now is trying to do. Brianna, how are you today?
Doing great, Jordan. Excited to dive into this topic and hopefully we can enlighten our listeners a little bit more about this important issue. So, without further ado, I'd love to invite on our guest host for the day. He is a lifelong baseball fan. Welcome, Jeremy Bramwell.
Thank you for having me, guys. Jordan and Brianna, it's great to be here.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate your time and getting caught up on what we've been doing. And we're excited for you to lead a discussion with us. What do you have?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was introduced by Brianna's lifelong baseball fan. Started out when I did Little League at 9, and I lived in Delaware, and yeah, I started watching baseball on TV with the Philadelphia Phillies, so I've been a Phillies fan for 35 years. Yeah, when they weren't on TV, I would listen to them on the radio as many games as possible. So I started watching baseball. They just had the backstop netting; they didn't have any on the side. So line drives were just always screaming to everywhere into the fans, and yeah, you just got to be there and pay attention. A lot of people aren't. They want to go get their drinks and eat and just kinda chat while I watch a game, and just out of nowhere, I can get whacked by a ball, even bats flying into the stands. So, kinda saw that, and I saw the introduction of all the netting that started coming in on the sides, and high to try to help prevent some of the damage being caused by those balls and bats.
Definitely been going on for a long while and still in 2026, even with some upgrades and more noticeable netting in places, balls are still making their way over nets. Bats are still making their way over nets. And if you may have not noticed, Jeremy, on the website, even in the playoffs in 2025, it was Detroit Seattle in one of the earlier rounds. This guy, Jorge Polanco's having really a great game. He had 2 home runs for the Mariners, and one of his next at bats, he breaks it, and nobody knew at the time where the broken bat had gone. Most of the bat actually made its way over the net. It was shown on commercial, going into commercial, and you even hear the announcer saying, "Yikes, look out, Jeremy." And nobody put 2 and 2 together that that could have really hurt somebody. So we wanna keep talking about this, and even in 2026, there's no lessons from those experiences. There's a bat that flew over the net at Yankee Stadium, and even in June, I even know the date, maybe because there's 2 twos together. June 22nd, Yankees versus Orioles at the 15:12, 15:13 second marker. People can see, I think it was a Baltimore Oriole player who threw the bat over the net at Yankee Stadium, and if it wasn't for a really hot day in June last year, maybe somebody in those rich seats would have been smashed because it hit the back of the seat or something, or went over the back of the seat. But why are bats or broken bats 2025, 2026 still going over nets and balls? So we wanna talk about this stuff, Jeremy. So happy to answer any questions you may have or any comments.
Yeah, and talking about the bats, I know they used to have bats would splinter off a lot more, and they made some changes to bats, so they're not breaking and splintering off as much. We still have the bat actually leaving the hands of the hitter and losing grip and it flying wherever. So what kind of things have you seen as far as changes with the bats kind of affecting this problem that's there is?
Right. So about the manufacturing of bats and splinters potentially making their way through nets, I haven't really been putting too much emphasis on. I'm really just concerned about the most obvious life-threatening in the moment concern about a barrel of a bat that could spear your neck or your heart. And why is that still happening? A broken bat or a full bat that'll just take your head to places you'll never want to go and never be the same again if that bat ever hit you. And why is that still going on, Jeremy, in 2025 and 2026? It's not acceptable. And I think we need to finally get the right agency to inspect how business as usual has been conducted and let them who have the insights and the skill sets to tell us exactly what the next steps would be when it comes to installing proper netting and protocols to families and people of certain ages about this is what you can expect, this is what you are taking a risk for, has to be presented. It's never formally been presented. Once you're at the game and you see a sign, Jeremy, about be careful, what does that actually mean? We're now action figures of superheroes, and we're not there to be so stoically ready for like a ball to come hit us. And if we were told that in advance, I think that there would have been a lot more conversation and a lot more different ways how business as usual was conducted. Certainly since a 14-year-old boy got hit at Dodger Stadium in 1970 and died a few days later from a foul ball. Certainly that winter should have been the time to tell us all what would be coming in the 71 season. My friend, the lawyer Lynn, who may have not been friends with that girl when she was 14, but was friends with her and introduced me to her, who got blinded in New York in 1979. Even a guy from an incident with Jimmy Rollins. Jimmy Rollins hit a line drive into somebody by the name of Dwayne. We interviewed him, and he hasn't been the same since. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we're just trying to put this conversation out there and try to inspire like an epiphany of like, wow, this could have been us. And that's what we'll continue to do.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue. We do think about the lady that got hit by the ball and died. We have a tradition where fathers will take their sons, sometimes even their infant sons, to games. So you can talk about fans as young as 6 months old have to look out for foul balls. And if one of them were to get whacked, I mean that's a game over right there. So it's definitely an issue, and we have to look at all angles from.
Yep. And Brendan, who's been with me now for 7 years, we're producing a book, Jeremy, that I think is really gonna get America's attention, and we're almost done. We're really making a lot of progress, so sooner rather than later on delivery of book, and this book is going to really be powerful, Jeremy. This is an infant standing with his mom. It was a boy, but he grew up nonverbal. He was hit by a bat. This was an ESPN game on TV, a Major League Baseball game. You actually see the bat traveling at the mom and the kid, and it made contact with them. And from that moment on till like 7, 8 years later, this family more or less was left alone. They were at their own recourse. The team doctor did not go with them to the emergency room. And from that moment on, they were alone. Treatment for the baby, etc., with a head trauma and trials and pre-trials and depositions. Brendan and I got a call from this lawyer last year around this time. They were preparing for trial. Nobody in America knows about this case, but we did. Brendan ended up doing work for that law firm, preparing them for their trial, which ended up being in a settlement. But it was years later, and the family was all on their own from the day it happened, from finding their own doctors. The team had nothing to do with networking and bringing in their billionaire connection neurologists. Nothing like that, Jeremy. That's what these teams do. They hurt you, they club you, they smack you, and they'll say, "Good luck. Come back maybe, and we'll give you some free tickets." But that's it. They're not taking care of the problem or making that family feel whole again. People that Brendan and I have met and interviewed clearly deserve reconciliation from how they were treated in the past. And I don't want to go in case by case, but Brendan and I have interviewed more than 20 people. Erwin Goldblum, he's been to 7 of our virtual press conferences, even articles in People magazine, Forbes, Boston Globe, LA Times. Irwin had something to do with maybe attracting some of those people because he was certainly experiencing a loss a few years earlier. His wife was hit in August of 2018 at the Dodger game, and she passed away a few days later. And it wasn't till Labor Day 2019, we're talking a year and some days after she was struck, when the nets went up vertically behind home plate. She was in the Loge level. And certainly for the month of September and October, because the Dodgers had made the playoffs that year. They usually do, as baseball fans know. But that being said, certainly those people were sitting in probably her seat in her row and her section, not knowing about it. It wasn't announced till 2019, Jeremy. And then when it was announced, all of a sudden, this ESPN guy, Willie Weinbaum, who came to one of our virtual press conferences a couple of years later, he does an article about people who had died from baseballs. And Linda Goldblum was not in that article, and the daughter saw it, and she called him. And he was like shocked. And then all of a sudden, local media started going over to the house and talking to them. And even then, people who sat at Dodger Stadium in that row, in that seat in April, May, June, July, and August may not have known from local news on some one night, local news about that. Dodgers didn't probably, I don't know if they did or didn't, but I doubt they did, of telling people, "You sure you really want to sit here? You sure you really want to sit here?" For all those months in 2019. And then all of a sudden, Labor Day, the nets go up vertically. Crazy, right?
Yeah, to your point, Jordan, I feel they should have to disclose when someone's been blinded, concussed, or worse. Like in Linda's case, she passed away. They should have to disclose that information to people in what sections of what ballparks this is happening in. People are bringing young kids and even babies to games. And as a parent, I just feel that there's not enough crystal clear messaging for parents as to what the risks really are for their kids. I think most parents would be making different decisions if the information was disclosed. When it's a head trauma, and just working with this campaign for over a year and a half and seeing so many injuries and becoming intimate with some of the cases that we've seen, a concussion when it's a head trauma is often one of the more mild ones. We've seen, skull fractures, brain bleeds, etc. And as a parent, you don't want to put your child in harm's way.
I don't know if that was too much for you, Jeremy, but it's disturbing. But we try to stay positive by just collecting a lot of information. If people go to the website Foul Ball Safety Now, you'll see something we call Exhibit A1, which is a published report from 2019. And Brendan and I incorporated a lot of our own research. You can almost retrace your steps. It's not just the major league ballparks, but we're talking 169 other professional ballparks that I've been tracking, and some of them still don't have netting past end of dugouts similar to that 5-minute video when you see no human being should be exposed to any of those line drives, let alone little kiddies. But that being said, you can almost retrace your steps and you'll realize how many hundreds of thousands of balls there are every year. There's 2,400 plus major league games every year, Jeremy, but there's 14,000 other professional games every year. Close to 50% of balls go in a particular hot zone, and they show 53 foul balls per game. You could really do the math and realize that there's hundreds of thousands of foul balls that are going into certain zones, and some of them clearly are going fast, a lot faster than we want. And people may have experienced near misses before, and the popcorn goes pop or the beer explodes, and nobody leaves, Jeremy. Everyone has a nervous giggle. This is on all levels of professional baseball. And we just want to let people know that once you see Exhibit A1, specifically said 53 foul balls in a 9-inning game, and that was for MLB. I'm assuming it's close to 53 foul balls throughout professional baseball because it's a 9-inning game. But even if you cut that number in half, Jeremy, to 25, even less than half, you multiply 14,000 times 25, 350,000 foul balls. It said 49.9%, which is basically 50%. Half of those balls are going into those zones. That's 175,000 balls. That's a lot of balls, and some of those balls are going at 100, and that's crazy. And baseball probably knows to the penny. Was it 40,000 of those 175,000 going at 100 miles per hour? Was it 10,000? Was it 2,000? But why would you put your kid in a place where there's a near miss? But baseball could tell you if somebody digs deep enough, Jeremy, because they've been tracking things for the last decade or two. And where's that journalist who's going deeper and saying, we want to know, you've been tracking exit velocities and launch angles. Just tell us how many beeliners were going at those speeds. Some may have been going at 20 miles per hour, which could have been like a little bit of a harder toss. But 100 miles an hour is like life-threatening. Come on. And we want to talk about it. And that's the story, Jeremy, for all of us to discover.
Yeah, you had mentioned before in another podcast how the fans want to get souvenirs. You had mentioned back in the '70s or even before they had balls flying. They never thought about doing nettings. Think the opinion was, oh, give every fan the opportunity to get a foul ball, and so it's kind of see the evolution of that, and also just safety overall. When I was a kid, no one wore bike helmets, or half the people didn't wear seatbelts. But now, even though we understand the risks, we all have measures. Like I said, the helmet, so you might as well have that for baseball too. Whatever measures you can add to increase the safety at all levels of baseball. You add all the minor leagues into it and the semi-pro leagues and college leagues and all those foul balls and all those dangers. And then we're looking at probably possibly a million foul balls.
All what you're saying makes total sense, and this should have been dealt with decades ago, for sure. And I believe there's architects, engineers, and designers in every zip code that would tell MLB, hey, just give us the data and watch what we whip up in a day or two. And whatever the nets may look like going up to the sky, like a golf range, when you see these golf ranges have these nets that look like they're going up way high. Whatever it may be, stop the bullshit already. Stop the balls from hitting the window and hitting the people. Could you stop that already? One or many balls are hitting the pavement windows or people in the head, and it's not acceptable. And we'll continue to discover just how many people were on the other end. I speak to people, they say, "Oh, it's unspoken not to park in those parking spots." Really? It's not unspoken to the people that don't know anything. They shouldn't have to park their car there, and once they go inside, like Brianna and her young child, they should have an opportunity for a free and clear experience, no strings attached. There's not gonna be any issue. We can't prevent a slip and fall or an idiot from throwing a beer or punching somebody, but we can certainly prevent a ball or a bat from hitting your group. Can we make that happen already? And if there's risks, you'll tell them all what the risks are, and they'll sign some kind of waiver. But let them know there's near misses coming at them all the time. And no parent, if they knew, I can't believe any parent would, after seeing that 5-minute video from 2019 and realizing there's still cities in America today, professional cities, that still operate with similar lack of netting in those places. What is that? Not acceptable. Players and their families, they ultimately are the ones hitting the ball, and they have the right in collective bargaining. And we're going to find out with more digging that players union have not negotiated hard enough to get oversight and independent netting counsel that would tell us exactly where the nets go. I wanted them to show me who's been involved in the protocol of the upgrades at MLB. Has it been one guy with too many responsibilities, or is it a team of sophisticated architects, engineers, and designers? Jeremy, I believe it's been one guy who's overworked and should have had a team of engineers, architects, and designers along the way. Certainly, since a 14-year-old boy got hit at Dodger Stadium and died, should have woke up America. 1970. But what's done is done, Jeremy, and we'll keep on making the sounds that we believe are necessary.
Yeah, one thing is baseball tracks everything. They'll track the path of every single home run and launch angle. They could do that for every foul ball and see exactly where these line drive foul balls are going in the nets. And the architects can design the netting and around that data. So MLB can use the same statistics that they have a custom used for 100 years to down to the T. They can use for that as well.
I agree with you. And there's enough sophisticated people who do that type of work, and maybe they'll be up in arms when they learn about what we were up to, or at least what we're doing and presenting, and say we should have been called on this years ago. And the people who are running the upgrades at MLB clearly are probably not qualified. And Brianna and I are discovering bats are still making their way over nets and doing serious damage. Dark Ages 2026. And you're not going to tell me anything else until there's changes, until Brendan and I will keep on learning about more injuries, and we're going to hear some sad stories. And we met too many people along the way who deserve recognition and reconciliation from what happened to them. There's no apology for these people, Jeremy. What are you going to say? What could team management say other than give you free tickets to come back? Because it's not genuine if it could happen to somebody else the next day. We interviewed a girl who was 30 years old. She was like 9 or 10, and her family, she got hit. She was unconscious for 4 or 5 days. That's like a
Wow.
coma. That's crazy. And when she was healing, the team offered tickets and she came back to the game. But now she's experiencing something called gift remorse. I think she's pissed at her parents for taking the tickets. And maybe your parents should have said, no, no, we don't need the tickets. You could take the tickets and stick them where you know what. How about don't let it happen to anybody else? And this was 20 years ago. And unfortunately, she's going through psychological and physical issue as a 30-year-old mom of two. And she was very kind to connect with us. We're connecting with a lot of people, Jeremy, and we're going to continue to do that. You're part of an interesting cast of guests that have come and will continue to come, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, as far as, Bob understanding hating people, are the video feeds, like, cutting away from it because they didn't want people to have to see it, so then it's kinda keeping people from becoming as aware, or are they kinda letting the camera sit there for a while to kinda see the damage it's doing?
Well, that's really good question. From, let's say, the many videos that we've seen of some that are available on YouTube and things you can find for yourself, we'll sometimes hear the announcers react sarcastically. There was a near miss in Tampa at the time. There was no netting above the dugout, and it goes right between these two guys' heads, and they didn't have a chance. and you hear, in the announcer saying, "Buddy, look out," instead of like, "Hey, Joe, did you see what I just saw?" "Yeah, Jack, that's crazy. That guy would have been the bloodiest thing ever if it ever went 2 inches that way." They don't talk like that. So I'm glad you brought that up. It usually, when these incidents happen, the cameras will not show the replay many times, and the announcers will not elaborate on it. Sometimes there's a stoppage in play, so maybe at those times they can't help, but will they address the solution in that moment? I don't think so. I think, unfortunately, too many broadcasters and baseball writers who've had the opportunity, Jeremy, to connect the dots and finally present everything in a common sense so the conversation would start and wouldn't end till the conclusion of solution for each ballpark. But unfortunately, that conversation really hasn't unfolded. But we're hoping this conversation that the three of us are having will definitely start a large conversation. People will adopt this conversation, take it to their own circles. You're free to do that, Jeremy, and I'm free to circle back with you once there's more people that are curious and they want to be presented. And that's true for the doctors and the athletes and the lawyers that have also been on this recording experience with us. We're doing this nearly a year, and we're so excited that we've met really great professionals that have been part of this experience with us, and they're free to come back and they're free to network. We're all supposed to look at this problem together. But I'll keep on presenting as we keep collecting things. And I'm fortunate as a baseball fan and I'm able to have Brianna working with me. She could be doing other things with her part-time work, and Brendan, they could be doing other things with their part-time work, but they've been committed to being very resourceful and effective and helping the campaign. And you're free to stay in touch with us and ask us more questions because we're in season 7 and I'll keep on sounding the alarm bells and keep the drum beat going. I have to. What else is there to do? Truth in baseball matters, and I'd like to get to it, and I hope we get to it soon.
And it lends itself to the idea that all experience is romantic, and if something should happen to you, then it's your fault and you should have been paying attention. And that's an attitude that we see and we hear a lot. And it's an attitude that I personally feel has been pushed through the videos that we see shared online and the comments and any sort of viral incident that doesn't involve a child. It's interesting, when it's an adult, there's a lot of victim blaming and saying, you should have been paying attention. What were you doing? Get off your phone. But the science literally says that there's a fraction of a second of reaction time, which means that even if you're staring without blinking, you can knock it out of the way in time. So I think that attitude of victim blaming, we need to kind of shift away from that and question why we even resort to that in the first place.
Yeah, Def, I just want to add one more thing. It sounds like for a while MLB's kind of more concerned about the on-field line drives, having the base coaches now, and then they start wearing helmets. So yeah, it just needs to kind of go everywhere. The same kind of focus needs to be on the fan injuries and what is MO going to do maybe as far as that goes. So
We're aware of a coach by the name of Mike Kuba. Mike would even tell his wife, there was an article or two, he may have even told his wife when he was a player, to sit behind the nets. And, as a baseball players, they all are aware and their families are aware. They all grow up with, the compromised safety and the concern of the loved ones. But it's insider knowledge. Most other fans don't have the insider knowledge on where to park and where to sit, as in the safest experience as possible. But, we'll keep on making the sounds. We're not action figures and superheroes, Jeremy. We never were. We're at the game already, and they may even tell you on your cup holder, be careful of a foul ball. That's too late for that information to be first expressed. It should have been expressed in a thought out manner, social cues that we've never received, things that we would have learned, and agencies and other places would have picked up on it, and we would have had a different type of baseball society. And I'm looking for a free, truthful baseball society that Well, I'll recall back in 2026 and before that business as usual was incorrect. And I hope we get there very soon. I really do. But we'll keep on making all the strides we're doing by always having new conversations with people, and we're all free as independent people to take on this cause, take on this manner within your own zip code. It affects all levels of baseball, and we're hearing it from colleges, we're hearing it from parents of high schoolers, we're hearing it from citizens who buy houses and their houses are plummeted or belted with balls, foul balls, and maybe they had no idea that that was the case. Maybe the developer did, but all for more discussion. We just want safe baseball experiences for all. We can do it. Everything costs time. Everything is a dedication first, but there's billions and billions of dollars and so many architects, engineers, and designers can step in and they'll understand the data and they'll figure out what actually would be the next steps, and we'd all agree upon it. And there's enough billionaires out there that could take care of their own establishments, and they could certainly adopt the fields of their fields in their area. There's plenty of that to go around. Baseball's making tons of money, and I want dignity in baseball for all and no more surprises for parents. People should not go to the game thinking strings attached. Well, they don't actually, but there's always been strings and conditions attached. Most people go to the games thinking wholesome, apple pie, unconditional, good times, fun. But in reality, not the case because every year there's new entries in less than 1% injured club. Obviously, 100 million fans, probably not a million injuries. I don't think so. Or certainly not life altering injuries, but there's been thousands upon thousands upon thousands of life altering injuries, and that's less than 1%, but it's a significant amount if it's going to happen all the time. We wouldn't walk down a street on a high rise if we know 4 or 7 or 12 or 18 boulders were coming down that week. We would not take a chance and be one of those near misses. You would never, ever bring the kid. It's insult, man, and it's continuing, and we could definitely start this conversation and spread it.
Yeah, Jeremy, as a lifelong fan, do you think there's assumptions that fans naturally make about their safety when they're planning their day at the ballpark?
Yeah, I was actually thinking that. I think a lot of the fans realize that netting has been put up, so there's a false sense of security, thinking, "Oh, MLB knows what they're doing. They have the netting out to protect us, so nothing can happen to us," and not thinking about where gaps and things can be, and then where injuries can be, or maybe they have friends at the ballpark sitting in a different section where they need to notify them about the gaps in the netting. So I think there's a lot of that going around, just a false sense of security that, oh, it can't happen, and it also can't happen to me. A lot of kids or want to get a foul ball and they go several games their whole life and don't come close to catching a foul ball, but so you don't think about getting whacked by one, but I mean, it happens and you got to feel for the person it happens to. So even one child being hit is too many. So
Jeremy, well said, well said. And, that whole topic in itself is how would we get to that transition of getting kids whose expectations, as they're growing up, that's the rush that kids love, probably ages through, little kitty till 12, 13. That's what they like. And they want that ball. Even people, older people, we've seen older people react in a silly way if they saw themselves on camera. It's been in their bloodstream. I wanna catch a foul ball, I wanna catch a foul ball, and we saw a woman, I think last year, and she probably, if she saw herself, she would have been embarrassed where she was pulling the ball away from a little kid. It's kind of funny to watch, but at the same time, there's plenty of $6 baseballs out there. We can compensate. Promotions and public relations at all these teams would have a young group of people coming up with so many different ideas on how to compensate less foul balls coming at babies or young people's heads or any people. So we believe what you're saying is spot on about gaps and balls reaching over nets. It gives people a false sense of security, and we want to stop that already and finally create conversation which will lead to an unveiling or reveal of how was done and what's still being done. And from there, hopefully, we'll get people committed to the solutions. So thank you, everyone. This was a really upbeat, good conversation by all, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you.